behold, I'm about to rain down bread from heaven for you. This is coming out of Exodus chapter 16, verses 3 through 5. And it's actually talking about when the people of Israel they had come out of Egypt and they were hungry and they started complaining. And they said, if it was going to be like this, God should have just let us stay in Egypt. Because at least in Egypt, we was eating good, our bellies was fat, and we had pots of meat. And God heard them complaining, and he said to Moses, let the people know that I'm about to rain down bread from heaven. And Moses did. He said, I'm about to do this because I want to test them and see if they're going to keep my law or not after I bless them. And when he did this, he gave them instructions. He said, every day I'm going to rain down this manna from heaven, and they must gather it every day. When they gather it, they must eat what they can eat for that day only. And on the 6th day, I'm going to give them double. I'm going to give them double for the 7th day, which is the day of rest, the Sabbath day. When Moses and Aaron let the people know this, they said, oh, you're about to see that it was the Lord your God who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And so God did just what he said he was going to do. He rained down the manna from heaven. And this really stood out to me because I know that just like the children of Israel, and I think I called them the children of Egypt earlier because that's really what they was acting like. But just like the children of Israel, God has heard your cry. God responded to them not because they complained, but because he knew that they really didn't know him. They didn't see who he really was in his fullness, everything that he had done. Even though he parted the Red Sea, even though he destroyed their enemies, even though he delivered them from abuse. Because when God delivered them, their process didn't look like what they thought it was going to look like. Their process wasn't what they imagined in their heads, how God was going to deliver them. They didn't think that God was going to take them out of the land of Egypt and that they would have to travel into a process that would strip them, that would test them in order to prepare them to walk into the promised land. They thought they were just going to walk right into the promised land with Egypt still in their hearts, with Egypt still in their minds and in their spirits. No, they had to go through a process of stripping. They had to go through a process of healing before they could enter into the promised land. And so that's what God was taking them through. And it shouldn't have taken long. It should have only taken a few days for them to be ready. But because Egypt was so ingrained in their hearts, because they were so ungrateful, because they complained so much, and because they did not know the Lord their God, because they had so much evil and idolatry in their hearts, it took them 40 years. And many of them died in the process. They never entered into the promised land. They died in their process of healing. They died in their process of deliverance because they chose not to participate. They chose to not obey the commandments of God. They chose to not follow his instructions. And so this serves as a warning for us as well. We cannot have the things that God wants us to have without going through the process that God has set before us. So yes, God is about to rain down bread from heaven, but be certain to pass the test of obedience. When he blesses you with this blessing, follow his instructions. Do what he requires of you. Because remember, this is just one stop in the process. This is not everything that God has for you. When you're going through this promised land process, don't settle for a steak when God is trying to give you the cow. The steak will sustain you for the process, but God wants you to own cows because he is the God that owns cattle on 1,000 hills. He's trying to get you to that place of promise. So be obedient, be grateful, be a good steward of everything God has given you because he wants to give us more. He wants us to know him more. He wants to give us relationship. He wants to give us his heart. He wants us to know him as the true and living God. Not only as the God who delivered you out of your process, not only as the God who delivered you from abuse, not only as the God who saved you from affliction, not only as the God who vindicated you. No, he's not that alone. He is also your Father. He is also your provider. He is also your protector. He is also your secret place. He is also everything. He wants to be your everything. He wants relationship with you. He wants you to grow in the knowledge of him. He wants you to fully know him. He wants to be known and fully known. Steward your relationship with God by having the fear of the Lord, because the fear of the Lord leads to understanding. In order to understand God more, you must reverence him more. You must realize that he is worthy of all reverence, and then you will approach him with due honor and respect that he deserves.